Good morning, everyone. We will be starting in a couple of minutes. Okay, so good morning once again. Thank you all for joining our DrayTek 2016 Product Overview webinar. My name is Mia Athawale. I'm the Technical Product Manager for the DrayTek line of products with ABP Technology. So before we start, I would like to mention that our Henry Castillo, our Technical Director, will be taking your questions today. So don't forget to type them in the chat window anytime during the course of the webinar. We will try to answer all your questions during the webinar, or if we run out of time, we can just email you the information that you need. So let's take a look at what we will be covering today in this webinar. This is an introductory webinar for those who are new to DrayTek. So we will start with a quick introduction to the company and discuss the amazing value that DrayTek offers SMBs with their popular multi-WAN VPN routers. We will also look at how ITSPs can benefit from the inbuilt VoIP features on the routers, and also for ISPs and multi-site projects, how DrayTek's centralized management software, the ACS-SI, ties in neatly to offer a complete solution. This will be followed by an overview of the product line and the models that are popular in USA, and also some of our recommended bundles to get the most out of these devices. We will then, if time permits, also see an introduction for the ACS centralized management platform. And I'll highlight some of DrayTek's trends and innovative feature offerings that make it different from other competing brands in the market. Afterwards, if we have covered all that we are trying to cover today, we will take a look at a demo of the Dual WAN 2925 router, which is our most popular model. So if you have problems with the audio, please let us know through the chat window. So let's start. So let me give you an overview of the company if you're not familiar with DrayTek or you've just started using DrayTek routers. DrayTek is a networking solutions manufacturer from Taiwan. They are popular all over the world, especially in UK, Europe, and Asia for their feature-rich business routers, firewalls, and VPN gateways. They were one of the first global companies to introduce VPNs for teleworkers and dual WAN routers to the SMB market. So we saw a lot of those devices in the enterprise market, but DrayTek was one of the few who started the trend in the SMB market. Thousands of DrayTek devices are sold worldwide every year. So last year alone, they sold about 500,000 devices globally. UK is one of their biggest markets. You will find that DrayTek is a household name in UK. Although DrayTek is still relatively new to USA, they are rapidly becoming a popular choice as a feature-rich SMB router. So let's look at some of DrayTek's successful deployments around the world. Their biggest success has been with Vodafone in Netherlands. So Vodafone, as you know, is a major internet service provider, and it chose DrayTek as its standard CPE router of choice in Netherlands. Vodafone has about 80,000 DrayTek routers deployed to their customers so far, and they keep adding more every day. Moreover, all these devices are managed through a central interface with DrayTek's ACS-SI software. We will look at that later in the demo. But yeah, around the globe, I mean, British Telecom, Pizza Hut, Siemens, DrayTek has had a lot of multi-site deployments with their routers. They also saw a lot of innovative projects. There was one with a fleet of buses where DrayTek was used to provide passengers Wi-Fi while connecting to the internet through a 4G modem. So the applications are really endless. As you can see on my slide, this year, Network World named DrayTek as one of the best VPN routers for small business. So what makes DrayTek different? Of their 250 employees worldwide, 60% of their employees are research and development. So DrayTek is a very innovative company capable of developing really customized solutions for niche market segments that they identify with close cooperation with their local partners. So in the USA, that's ABPTech. We are their exclusive partner. We work very closely with DrayTek for adding new features that will benefit our US customers. And since DrayTek is such a small and focused company, they have a faster speed to market than some of their larger competitors. Also, DrayTek has been perfecting router hardware and software for over a decade now. So they enjoy a great reputation in terms of quality. As we have ourselves found, our customers love it, that we see very low returns on DrayTek products, hardly ever a failure. So we hear from our customers all the time who are moving from brands such as SonicWall, Microtech, Watchcast to DrayTek, considering the features and performance for the SMB market. So how does DrayTek compare? Well, we observe that some manufacturers like SonicWall focus more on enterprises. So their SMB products are just a scaled down version that follows their enterprise pricing and licensing model, which can get quite expensive for SMBs. Some others in the market are more focused on SMBs. They are dual WAN routers. However, they do not offer the incredible array of business features, enterprise business features that DrayTek offers their SMB customers. Some other brands are complicated to configure. They require command line configuration, and they require a full-time trained technician to deploy. But DrayTek's web GUI makes it really easy to configure even the most complicated scenarios. So with DrayTek, SMBs can have the sophisticated enterprise feature sets built into their routers without any recurring licensing or support expenses. But it's not just for SMBs. So for service providers or integrators who have large multi-site projects, visibility and control over their networks is critical. DrayTek has a centralized management software, they call it the ACS-SI, which is designed for MSPs and ISPs to see the connectivity status, monitor alerts, generate detailed reports for all their customer routers from one centralized location. So the ACS lets them manage and monitor thousands of DrayTek routers in their multi-site deployments. Like I mentioned, Vodafone before, they have 80,000 routers that they manage through a centralized interface with the ACS. This makes it very easy to monitor network disruptions, take backups or push firmwares and licenses or build VPNs through one single interface. Last year alone, we saw thousands of DrayTek modems deployed by a small ISP based out of North Carolina. We also saw some very good multi-site projects with DrayTek. Tower Energy, based out of California, deployed DrayTek to all their gas stations and connected the routers together through VPNs. So what they were trying to do is deploy a secure private network at a fraction of the cost of their original MPLS network. We also saw another company from California, Colonial Energy, which has a similar model with about 50 locations connected through VPNs to their central headquarters. Not just for multi-site projects, DrayTek is also a great solution for MSPs. They can standardize on DrayTek to provide their customers a quality product at lower costs. And also, because DrayTek is so easy to configure and maintain, they reduce their support requirements. So MSPs can proactively monitor their customer networks, and the ACS can also be offered as a great value-added service. We actually did an interview for a company based out of Dallas, Untitled, that has hundreds of DrayTeks deployed to their customers. They talk about why they choose DrayTek over the Microtech routers that they were using, and you can probably look up the video on YouTube if you have time. So for ITSPs also, it's very easy to set up QoS on DrayTek, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So it's very easy for them to set up QoS and ensure good audio quality and failover internet connections for redundancy. So DrayTek works great when bundled with VoIP solutions to provide high quality, uninterrupted VoIP service. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of DrayTek's strengths now and where, in which applications DrayTek routers really shine. So the first application I want to discuss is network redundancy. Perhaps you want to use a second internet connection for backup since your primary ISP is not reliable. Or maybe you want to load balance your network traffic over multiple internet connections for additional capacity. Or you're worried about your VoIP quality and you just want to completely separate your VoIP traffic over a second internet connection while your primary is only kept for data. So this is where DrayTek DrayTek really shines. These are the applications where you ought to be using DrayTek in your deployments. Perhaps in your environment, uptime is critical and you need hardware redundancy on your routers in case of power failures. So for people who have already been using the 2925 series, hardware redundancy, which was only a feature on the mid-size routers, 2960 and 3900, was recently introduced even for the SMB routers. So 2925, which is our most popular SMB router, which we are going to look at in the demo, received a firmware upgrade, and now you can have hardware redundancy on the routers. So you can deploy 2 DrayTek routers in a master-slave configuration for seamless failover. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I encourage you to upgrade your firmware and look at the feature. Now, maybe you need to get a customer's network installed in places where there is no internet connection available yet, but you need to get them online as soon as possible. So this is where DrayTek can be deployed with compatible 4G LTE modems. Now, I'd like to caution though that we have a list of supported modems. I shared a handout which you can look at in your GoToWebinar panel. So in that handout, I have the list of supported modems from AT&T and Verizon. And so DrayTek can essentially, this just adds 2 more internet connections to your dual WAN router. So DrayTek can be used to provide redundancy and high availability in all these scenarios. In these type of applications, DrayTek would be the perfect choice. And if you have any questions based on how many internet connections you want to use, we can recommend you the right model based on your application. So do reach out to us. VPNs. VPNs have always been DrayTek's area of strength. They started with an SMB VPN model. That's what they are good at. So VPNs can be used to connect remote teleworkers to a central office over encrypted secure tunnels, or remote dial-in VPNs, as DrayTek calls them. Or VPNs can also be used to connect remote branch offices of a company to headquarters and to each other, or site-to-site VPNs. So DrayTek supports all the popular protocols, IPsec, L2TP, SSL, PPTP if you want to use it. DrayTek has their own VPN client that you can download and use on your computers for remote dial-in VPNs. They also have an Android app now for SSL VPNs. But if you don't want to use DrayTek's client, you can also use the inbuilt VPN client on the Macs and Windows to connect to a DrayTek router. So for site-to-site VPNs, multi-site projects with site-to-site VPNs, that is exactly the kind of project that DrayTek routers excel at. So for any company with multiple locations like a retail chain or car dealership or restaurant franchise, or maybe a small boutique hotel chain, point of sale applications, secure communication between their branches is critical. So even if you have an expensive MPLS network between branch locations for private communication, that can be replaced by site-to-site VPNs if you have DrayTek routers deployed at the branches and are mid-sized routers with hardware redundancy at your headquarters. So let us know how many remote locations you want to connect, and we will recommend the perfect router for your needs. And you know, the best part is that the VPN capabilities are built into the router, and they do not require any license or the purchase of any additional VPN or security module. So Henry, do we have any questions so far? Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm here. I was muted. We have a couple questions so far, but I'm gonna send them to you when we're talking about the specific topic.
Okay, sure. Okay, so let me move on to firewall. So all DrayTek routers have an extremely flexible firewall that lets you set up objects based on, of course, source and destination IP addresses and ports, but also based on URL keywords or time schedules or user profiles, application filters to filter some specific applications. So I'll show all this in the demo, but the firewall on DrayTek can be configured to allow a variety of complex filtering rules. So you can have schedules, user profiles for controlling internet access for your employees set up. So for example, if you want to block an employee from accessing social networking throughout the day, but only allow maybe Facebook for an hour during lunch, you can do that. You can have separate users set up, so marketing always has access to social networking websites. User management is the router's authentication and authorization system. So what I just mentioned, where you can set up different internal users and control their internet access, that is done through user management on the router. So you can let users log in and connect to the internet for a specified time or data quota. And this can also be used with an external radius server. And this type of management is useful for controlling your employees' access to the internet, but also in case of hospitality applications. If you have hotels, for example, you can control, or a cafe, you can control exactly who has access to the internet and for how long. Now, I'd like to mention the web category filter here. This is the only feature on the router that requires a license because it's a third-party provider that supports this feature. So what this means is that if you want to block a particular website, for example, facebook.com, you can do that through the URL keyword filter, which is inbuilt and it's free. But if you want to block a whole category of websites, block all social networking websites, or block all news websites, then this list is maintained in real time by a third party, which is why we have a license for it, but the costs are absolutely negligible. So this feature is very popular with our customers. So I mean, with competing brands, you will be paying upwards of hundreds of dollars for this web category filter, whereas with DrayTek, it costs you about $50 to $60 annually, depending on your model. So let's take a look at that when we are in the demo. Let's talk about wireless for a little bit. So DrayTek doesn't just make routers. They also make really good wireless access points. And a really cool feature on the DrayTek routers is the ability to manage the DrayTek access points right from the router's GUI. So you do not need to log in and configure each access point individually. So while other popular wireless solutions need a wireless controller to be purchased separately, this feature is built in on DrayTek SMB routers. Especially our most popular router, the 2925 dual WAN router, has this feature. So it can manage up to 20 access points connected to it, DrayTek access points. So the deployment of wireless access points in your network becomes completely plug and play. So SSIDs, security parameters, other features, they are all pushed out to your access points in batch mode. You do not need to configure them all individually anymore. Also, traffic usage for each access point can be monitored and load balancing between the access points can be set up. Load balancing can be done based on how much traffic each access point is handling, or how many stations are connected to a particular access point. Um, Recently, we also saw a new feature where you can encourage roaming between access points based on the signal strength. Um, so all this makes sure that all the access points deployed in your network efficiently handle your wireless traffic, and one of them is not overwhelmed while the others are not being used at all. So if you're looking to upgrade your wireless network for a more seamless experience, or if you're looking to standardize on one consistent solution, I would say DrayTek is perfect for wireless, SMB wireless applications. It also has a few features wherein you can control the stations that are connecting to the access point. So it can be very useful for small cafes, hotels. So let's look at that in the demo. Last but not the least, another important feature I'd like to discuss is the intelligent VoIP QoS on DrayTek routers. Now, as you know, QoS is essential for making sure that time-sensitive traffic, like VoIP, is prioritized over other traffic in your network. So you can make sure that the bandwidth is not taken up completely by your if somebody is streaming something and your voice quality suffers because of that. But configuring all the QoS parameters can be a little challenging for SMBs if you haven't done it before. And if you're just concerned primarily about your VoIP quality, DrayTek offers a single checkbox on the routers that can detect when a call is being placed, and it can automatically give it highest priority over the rest of your network traffic. So you do not have to go in there and configure any manual rules to filter out your VoIP traffic and then give it first priority over other classes of traffic. You do not have to set up classes. That is done automatically with a single checkbox in the router. So not only does it detect and give VoIP first priority, it also reserves bandwidth for 2 more VoIP calls than the current number of calls. So you are always assured pristine audio quality. And I would like to mention that we have worked very closely with DrayTek to test and perfect this feature. Also, for people who are already using this, this year we are also working on adding a whole new bunch of VoIP monitoring features. So we are collaborating with DrayTek. We saw what our customers need. We have a lot of customers deploying DrayTek along with their VoIP solutions. So we are adding a whole bunch of VoIP monitoring features so you can see more information about VoIP parameters like jitter or packet loss or MOS scores for each call that is being placed, that is passing through the DrayTek. So DrayTek offers several such unique features that automate complex network setup. And the learning curve on these routers is very easy because of all these tools that the router has. But once you're comfortable with the setup, DrayTek also offers all the bells and whistles. And you can just, if you want to set up everything manually to your exact specification, you can get into the router and do that once you're more familiar with the router. So Henry, any questions so far on the features I discussed?
Yes, let's go into questions or features before you move ahead. So the first question is, does DrayTek support dynamic DNS? Can you configure DNS?
Yes, it's available on almost all the models.
Okay. Another question is, you might have mentioned this, can we establish VPN using IPsec?
Yes, IPsec is supported, yeah. IPsec, LTTP, PPTP, SSL, all these are supported for both remote dial-in and, yeah, go ahead.
With the same vendor, also with DrayTek, or can you establish IPsec on DrayTek with a different vendor VPN?
For LAN to LAN, where I'm having a VPN between two routers, yeah, DrayTek can work as long as the other router supports the industry protocols. Yeah, we can establish DrayTek. We have had projects where we had VPNs between DrayTeks and Sonic Walls, DrayTeks and WatchGuards, and DrayTeks and Meraki's, even in the cloud. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Another question is regarding the support for LTE. can we put SIM cards inside the router instead of having an external modem?
That is something that will so we are working on a model, an LTE model for the 2925 series, and it's already been released in Europe. We are just waiting for the US carriers to be supported, and we expect that pretty soon. We are hoping to get a sample by April, and we'll make an announcement for that once we get a sample from the manufacturer.
Okay, so there is no support for it today, but there is some early boxes that already do in other countries. So hopefully we'll have soon in America. The same question, or very similar question is if you can put 2 SIM cards in the router.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. Yeah.
But you can put 2 dongles, LTE
yes.
dongles.
Two compatible LTE dongles can work simultaneously with the router. Yeah. So so for example, in the 2925 routers, you have 2 WAN connections and 2 USB ports. So effectively, you have 4 internet connections that you can load balance or failover between.
Okay. A couple more questions. Is there packet inspection antivirus available on the routers?
No, DrayTek routers are not UTM, so they don't support malware or spam or antivirus. No, you'll need a separate application doing that.
Okay. More questions on VPN. When you have a client VPN, do you need to install client software to establish a VPN?
You don't need the software, but I mean, you can use the built-in client, VPN client on your Windows or Mac or iPhone. That is all supported. But if you want to make it consistent for your users, you can definitely download DrayTek's free utility from the website. So you can have one consistent solution for all your users, and it's easier that way.
One last question on VoIP QoS. What happens if my SIP provider does not use a standard port 5060? How can DrayTek detect the VoIP call?
Well, there is the checkbox that I mentioned, and I'll show it in a moment. It does have a field where you can change your SIP port if necessary. So you can use another SIP port if you want. But DrayTek doesn't rely too heavily on how what SIP port you're using. They have a mechanism for detecting RTP streams. So they will still detect your call and give it first priority.
Okay, very good. You can move forward, Mia. That's all the questions for now.
So as I mentioned in the handouts, I have a product comparison that you can take a look at and see which models are suitable for what kind of applications, what type of web category filter license you might need on that router. Also, the MSRP is in there, but do check it again with your sales rep because it's for reference only, and your price. If you are signed up as a partner, you can take a look at your price when you log into our partner store. So here I'm just going to go over quickly over the products, the models that we sell in USA. So DrayTek routers, they can support a wide variety of WAN interfaces. So they can support cable, ADSL, VDSL, 4G LTE that we were just talking about, fiber. So depending on the model. So DrayTek offers an extensive range of routers suitable for different sizes of networks and applications. In the handout that I have uploaded there, you can see my suggested size of network. So depending on how many users you are going to have, what kind of router to go for. So for home users or ISPs who are looking for a very basic CPE router, DrayTek has numerous models with single WAN ports, 2120, 2912. These are also perfect as routers for branch offices if you have a multi-site hub and spoke VPN topology, you can place these smaller routers at the smaller branches, and you can have a mid-size router at the center. So for SMBs, the dual WAN routers are extremely popular, especially the 2925 series that we'll look at. For multi-site projects, as I mentioned, we have mid-size routers. Even if you have a larger office, I think that's the one you should be going for. So mid-size routers like the 2960 and 3900 series, they are suitable for large projects, and they have higher throughput, and they have some advanced routing features. Also hardware redundancy. That's available in 2960, 3900, also in the 2925 now. As far as wireless goes, most of the single and dual WAN routers are available in wireless variants. I have our naming convention there. So if you're looking at the 2925 series, for example, the 2925N is going to be single band 2.4 gigahertz. N plus is going to be dual band, concurrent dual band, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and AC is going to be the new standard 802.11 AC with really fast gigabit wireless speeds. So for access points, single band and concurrent dual band 2.4 and AC access points are available now. These access points are PoE powered devices, so you don't have to deal with any messy cabling. They look really, the ceiling mounted ones especially, they look really good in cafes or hotels. And they support a lot of advanced features. So you can configure multiple SSIDs and VLANs on the access points. They can work in various modes like as an access point or a universal repeater if you just want to repeat your wireless signal further. They have bandwidth management features too, and station control. So you can have granular control over who connects to the access point, what type of device is allowed to connect, for how long, for how much data, for how much traffic is allowed over that access point for each device. The ceiling mounted access point that I talked about, the 910C, is the latest in DrayTek's lineup of access points. So it's an 802.11 AC access point. And all these access points are controlled centrally through the 2925 router's wireless, built-in wireless controller. So they make a really nice bundle with the 2925 router for your SMB wireless deployments. Now, DrayTek also has fiber models, but they are special orders. So if you have a need for a model that has SFP ports, let us know, and we can send you the information and a sample of what we have. DrayTek also makes switches. So we also have gigabit and PoE switches. What's interesting about the switches is this year we are going to see switch management, which is very similar to what DrayTek has with the access points. So with your 2925 router, you'll be able to control all your switches in the network centrally. You can configure them centrally. You can configure and push out VLAN configurations. So you do not need to log in and even remote reboots and control how much PoE is available on each port. So you can control all that centrally from the router. That is a feature that will be available soon, and we'll send you a newsletter, maybe even have another webinar once it's formally announced by the manufacturer. But if you want to try it, let us know. We can send you a beta and you can try it out before it's available in the market. So before I start the demo, I just want to remind you again that Henry is taking your questions in the chat window. So if you have any questions on what we've discussed so far, don't forget to send him those. And we can go over them again after the demo. Or I'll send you an email later with whatever information that you need. So let's start the demo, Henry, if you don't have any questions right now.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, so this is the 2925 router's interface. So Henry, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So as I said, this is our most popular model in USA, and what you're seeing right now is our production router that we actually use at ABP Technology for our company. So this router has two WAN interfaces, WAN 1 and WAN 2, and also two USB interfaces. So you can have any compatible dongle from AT&T and Verizon connected here, and you essentially have 4 different WANs available for load balancing or failover. As you can see, we have WAN 1 and WAN 2 connected here. So let's look at how the router does load balancing. So at the moment, there are two types of load balancing available. You can either choose line speed, where you enter the line speed that you know you're getting on both your interfaces, and the router will load balance sessions between these two WAN interfaces in the ratio of your line speeds. You also have auto wait, where the router will just automatically detect the ratio of line speeds and send your sessions out on in that ratio. Now, I want to mention here that DrayTek has session-based load balancing. So it's not going to send every packet on, it's not going to load balance each packet on your multiple WAN interfaces. It actually keeps one session on one WAN interface and the next session that is open on another WAN interface. So if you have different applications on your computer, different sessions, they will all be load balanced and you will effectively get the additional capacity of both the WANs. Now, a really cool feature that was added lately was the WAN budget. This is very useful if you have any USB modems connected to DrayTek and you have any data quotas on these modems, because as you can see, if you're about to exceed your data quota, you can set up your monthly billing cycle. And when you're about to exceed that quota, the router automatically can send you an alert, a mail alert, or you can just shut down the WAN interface. So you're not hit with a lot of overage charges. As far as the LAN goes, so this router has 5 physical LAN ports, but also you can have VLAN set up to logically segment the network further. So this router allows 8 VLANs, but the mid-size routers 2960 and 3900 have capacity for more VLANs, and you can look at the handout to see exactly how many are supported on each model. So if you want your data network separated from your voice network, which is separated from your surveillance cameras, you can do that with the VLANs. Now you can either have your traffic load balanced between your WAN interfaces, or you can have more granular flexible rules with the route policies. So with the route policies, what you can do is decide which WAN interface will be used for what kind of traffic. So you can have a very flexible rule wherein you can say that any traffic that is being sourced at my PBX will be sent out on WAN 2 interface first, always, with this IP address. But if that interface fails, then it fails over to my primary WAN interface for data. So if you don't want just automatic load balancing, you can get into a really granular configuration. You can set a priority for each rule and decide what happens if one of the WAN interface fails. Now, I'd like to show you the firewall as I was talking about before. DrayTek has an object-based firewall. So you can, as you can see, you can have source, destination addresses set up as objects. You can group them together. You can have ports, keywords. So if you want to block facebook.com, that would be a keyword. So there's a lot of flexibility here for setting up objects, and all these objects can be used to set up filter rules in your firewall. As you can see, we have a few rules here already, but So you can actually, not just the source and destination IPs, but you can also set up keywords. You can set up DNS filters, because sometimes if you want to filter HTTPS traffic, that is not always filtered correctly by firewalls. This is where the DNS filter comes in. So if your firewall is not exactly reading and filtering traffic going to HTTPS websites, you need to set up a DNS filter. You can also have application filters. So if you want to block all BitTorrent traffic, you can do that through an application filter. All this except the web category filter that I mentioned to you before, the WCF. Everything else is built in. It does not require any license. What does the web category filter give you? As you can see, it has predefined categories here, and this is a third-party service. So they maintain a real-time list of all the websites on the internet. They maintain a list of categories for these websites, and you can block categories, so you don't have to get into each URL, the configuration of each keyword for every URL. Now, if you feel that something is not categorized correctly, it's very easy to report that to the service, and it gets updated in a day. So this is the firewall. Now, it's very powerful when combined with the user management. I talked about the user management before as the router's authentication authorization system. So you can set up different users. You can have different groups for employees, managers, marketing, and have very granular control over which firewall rules are applied to them. So when they try to access the internet through their browser the first time, they are asked to log in, and whatever profile that you've set for them, they will log in as that profile, and then you have the specific firewall rules applied to them. So you can decide how long they can go on the internet. You can have a time quota, or you can have a data quota, which is useful for hotels. So you allow them a certain amount of data, and when they use that up, their access for the day is blocked, and this quota will then renew again the next day. So this is also useful for cafes where free internet access is provided. So let me also show you VPNs. As I mentioned, there's LAN to LAN and remote dial-in profiles available here. All the popular protocols are supported. And since we are running out of time, I'm just quickly going through all the stuff that I already talked about, but so you can have some visual reference. But this is the central AP management. It's the wireless controller built into the 2925 router. So as you can see, we have 4 APs around the office right now that are registered to this router. And now we can go into each access point and manage them individually, but there's no need to do that because I can just push out the changes that I want through the router. So I have a default profile that I configure, which has the information for SSIDs and passwords and all the other parameters that I want to configure in the access point, and I keep that as a default profile. So whenever a new access point is connected to my network, it's plug and play. It gets an IP address, a DHCP IP address from the router, and this profile is pushed to that access point automatically. And as I mentioned, you can also load balance traffic between access points. You can load balance stations. So if one access point has 20 stations connected already, and that's the threshold you set, it's not going to accept any more clients trying to connect to it. They will be passed to the next access point. This can also be done through traffic. And you can force the access point to maybe disassociate some of its connected clients if they've been idle for too long. So it can accept new clients. So if they've been idle or they have really poor signal strength, they've moved away from that access point, they can be disassociated from that access point. Very quickly, I want to show you the ACS-SI. As I mentioned, this is the centralized monitoring software, configuration and monitoring software.
Mia, can I interrupt you with a couple questions before you move on to this other topic? I have a question on 2960. So from what you have shown, what is available on the 2960 or what is not?
The 2960 is one step up from the 2925. There are some additional features available on it. It has better throughput. It supports double the number of simultaneous VPN tunnels than the 2925. So 2925 supports 50. I believe the 2960 has about 100 tunnels supported simultaneously. If you look at the handout, I have a comparison for the routers based on the number of VLANs, number of VPNs. Some more features also are additional. So as I mentioned, load balancing. So what we discussed right now was outgoing load balancing. So when traffic goes out of your WAN interface, how will it be load balanced between your WAN connections? But there is also incoming load balancing, DNS load balancing. So if a query is directed to your server, whether it will be received on WAN 1 or WAN 2, that is available only on the 2960 and 3900 routers. Hardware redundancy was another feature that was only available on the 2960 and 3900 routers, wherein you can have two routers in the master-slave mode for seamless failover in case of hardware failures. But now it's been added to this router as well with the latest firmware. So yeah, high availability here. So I encourage you to check this out if you need an application where where uptime is critical. It's a great idea to have two of these routers in the master-slave mode.
Yeah, that's great. So if there's a power surge or something happens, the other one will take over.
Exactly, yeah.
Another question on the AP. So AP 900, is it just 802.11n or is it 802.11ac?
Now the AP 900 is 802.11n. The AP 900.
That's the picture you're showing, right? The dish is the 910.
The dish is the ceiling mounted is the 910C, which is 802.11ac.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, as you can see, I can just log in directly into these access points. I don't have to manage them from the routers, but it's really useful to do that because then I can just take backups and push firmware upgrades right from a central interface to all these access points. And I get to see the total traffic that is being load balanced across these access points, the stations that are connecting to the access point. So yeah, I mean, it's a great feature to make sure that all your wireless access points are being utilized efficiently. Now, since we are running out of time, I'd just like to show you the ACS-SI software. So this is a license, this requires a license, but it's a great software to be able to manage all your deployed DrayTek routers from one interface. This is a multi-tenant model, so if you have different customers, you can completely have separate accounts to manage each of them. You can have separate sub-networks. If you want, you can give them access, your customers access to their own sub-network, so they can log in and you know you can set up privileges. They can just maybe see their reports for their networks, or they can change a few things, customize the names or something of their routers. So it depends on you how much access you want to share. You can have different user types set up. You can have administrators or just operators set up here. And as you can see, you can have drag and drop VPNs between your routers through this. You can also have a really nice Google map where you can see all your deployed routers together, and you can visually see which ones are offline, which ones are online. Also, you have a lot of options to generate reports for your customers. So this can be a great value-added service, subscription-based service for your customers. You can show them how DrayTek is adding value to the network. You can show them that at some time, particular time, the WAN 1 failed over and to WAN 2, and their network wasn't affected because there was redundancy going on in the network. So it's useful to be able for the customer to be able to see these things and see the value. Also, you can push out firmware upgrades again through this interface. This software can be either installed on-premise, or you can also install this in a cloud server. We offer demos of this software, and I really encourage you to reach out to us so that we can set up a trial account for you, and you can register your routers to our demo ACS and play around with it and see how it works. So, Henry, do you have any questions on the ACS or something you'd like me to talk about right now?
Not now.
Okay. So I think we are almost out of time. If there's any questions pending from...
Well, one question is how do they get their demo account?
They can email, well, you can always send your feedback to this webinar on webinars@abptech.com. You can also email me at abptech.com. So I can set you up with a demo account. I can send you screenshots and instructions for connecting your routers to our ACS, and I'll set up a separate network for you. So you get your own login, it's separate from everybody else. And then you can do whatever you want with that network. You can create subnetworks, you can create different users. So you can just email me for a demo account.
All right.
So I think it's yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, there was just people thanking for very thankful for the presentation. They were asking if there is if you're gonna make this recording available.
Yes, I was just about to say that. So a recording of this webinar will be emailed to you next week. So you can use it for your reference or also to share with your colleagues. And you can visit us at DrayTekUSA.com for complete product information. We also are on LinkedIn, and we keep sharing updates about events on LinkedIn. So we have a lot of free training events around the country, hands-on labs where we can teach you exactly how to configure the router. So these events are a great opportunity to meet other integrators. So do follow us on LinkedIn so you can be up to date with all our announcements. I just want to mention we have Henry, we have an upcoming training, right, in Arizona?
Yes, we'll send invitation to everybody that is attending. We'll be having a training at the end of March in Phoenix, and in April we'll have one in the East Coast, and I think we're gonna go to San Juan, Puerto Rico too.
Okay, so we have a lot of things going on, and I encourage you to connect with us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thank you everyone
Also
for joining us.
Yeah, go to DrayTekUSA.com. We'll post all the new training events and everything, and news will be there. So thank you, everybody. I think we're going to wrap up now.
Yes, thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you soon at our next event. Thank you.